UrbanBroadcastMedia.com, Chicago.
And around the world where your voice is heard. This is UBM Talk.
Good afternoon. I should say good rainy afternoon. I'm Deborah Rose sitting in this afternoon for Chris Bass. Of course, this is Bassline. And my good buddy Chris is off doing what he needs to do. I think he's already shared. He's getting his checkup. We're keeping our prayers up, and some of you keeping your fingers crossed that Chris will get a flying colors report on his health. Thank you so much for being here. Of course, you are listening to UrbanBroadcastMedia.com, and the number to call in is 312-754-4333. That's 312-754-4333. That's 3 threes at the end. Hey there, producer Dion. Hey, producer Dion, you can give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Is this like the Facebook Live thing? No? Are they doing? Oh, thank goodness. You know, when you have just done radio and just radio, you don't do like all the cameras in the studio. It gets you kind of nervous when you know that all eyes are on you. I personally prefer all ears, so that's what I want, all ears. Let me tell you what's coming up on the show this afternoon. So for the next 2 hours, we're going to cover a lot of things. Later in the program, I really, really want to know this, okay? Here's what I want to know. What are you, like, just tired of? What have you had enough of? Think about that. What have you just had enough of? And it doesn't have to be anything in the political sphere. If it is, okay, that's fine. But it may be, something you've seen on TV, things people are doing at work, something your children are doing, your husband, your wife, whatever it is. Later in the program, I want to hear from you. What have you had enough of? Also, are people being too critical of the media's coverage of this election? And, lots and lots of people are saying that the media are not being fair when it comes to covering Donald Trump. Even Trump has said that a lot. He calls the media partners with Hillary because he calls her crooked, and I think he calls the media dishonest. So I'd love to hear your thoughts about it, and maybe you have just a totally different take on it. So we get into that. Are the media being too critical? Are people, rather, let me correct that, are people being too critical of the media's coverage of the election? Also, still in the midst of the Olympics in Rio, calling it Rio 2016. I'm curious, I was wondering about this. Do you only cheer for U.S. Olympians? Do you only cheer for U.S. Olympians? We'll get into that. We've got some more thoughts about that. And, of course, we're going to get into election 2016. I'm curious to know, are you still undecided? Or have you made up your mind? Has your mind been made up a long, long time ago? Are you still undecided? And what will it take to convince you one way or the other? And let's kick the show off now. Oh, I almost forgot. In my next hour, I'm going to have a co-host. That's right. The fill-in host will have a co-host. And coming up at 5 o'clock in the 5 o'clock hour, my husband, James, will be joining me. Why? Well, here's why. We debate things like all the time. So when I was coming down today, when I talked to Chris and I, thought about it more, I said, you know what? Let me invite Jimmy to come with. So he says he's up for it. But let me just, I don't want him to hear this, but let me tell you, I take no prisoners. I don't care if it is my husband. Shh, don't say anything. All right, let's kick the show off talking about the Milwaukee riots. Unbelievable. Oh, how sweet is that? That's my theme music because I am one of the regular correspondents to Bassline with Chris Bass. I'm here I believe that's every second Monday of the month. So Dion is sharp. I mean, Chris, he always gets the really good producers, and Dion is no exception. So in Milwaukee, I mean, the rioting it's calmed. They said last night was actually a night of peace, and thank God for that. Thank God for that. I have to be honest. I try and stay up on the news, and I don't know how this happened. I really don't. I was unaware of the disturbance, the riots. Some want to call it the uprising in Milwaukee until James told me about it. And I'm like, huh? What? And maybe I went to bed early, like the night before, and missed it. I don't know. But I have watched a lot of video clips showing what happened out there. And for those of you, I guess the one or two of you who are like me, sometimes, and it doesn't happen often, but you just really miss the big stories. Apparently, an armed man, and I want to say that clearly, an armed man, because usually we are talking an unarmed man. This guy was an armed man. Confrontation with the police. He was shot. There are varying reports. Some say that he was shot in the chest, I believe, and another part of the body. Others are saying that he was shot in the back, which, of course, if that is the case, that means that he was fleeing police. But if he was indeed shot in the chest or the stomach, then he wasn't fleeing. No indication if he was saying hands up, don't shoot. Have not heard anything about that. But for whatever reason, and I'm really not really clear about this, but a lot of people are in the media. They're making the point that the police officer who is alleged to have shot and killed the man was himself a black man. I was looking at an article, 7 things that you should know about the situation in Milwaukee, and I'll just run through those right quickly. They say, 1, in response to reports of the police shooting, angry protesters began causing disturbances around 3:30 p.m. on Saturday in Milwaukee. So that happened around around 3:30 on Saturday. As many as 7 shots could be heard from 8:45 to 9 p.m. So about 15 minutes, people said there was a barrage of gunfire. The second thing they say that you ought to know is that throughout the night, officers were violently attacked by members of the protesting mob. So residents, and you know what, I don't even know that. You have to be careful, because when you think back to what happened down in Ferguson, Missouri, most of the people that were arrested, they were not residents of Ferguson. They came from other cities and other states down to get in on the action. But they say, number 2, throughout the night, officers were violently attacked by members of the protesting mob. And one officer, he was seriously injured after someone threw a brick at his squad car. He was struck in the head and he bled profusely. Needless to say, people were jeering at that. They were probably cheering. Number 3, the rioters set a gas station on fire at around 10 p.m. while spontaneously shooting bullets into the heavily populated area. You can write these down if you want to, but this story is really, really telling. All right, again, rioters set a gas station on fire. Spontaneously, they were shooting bullets into the heavily populated area. Now, they don't say this, but in watching the video, I did hear the audio. All along, they were saying, Black Power. You put that together, okay? Number 4, the rioters also set a bank on fire, in addition to at least 3 other buildings, a couple of blocks away from the intersection where a mob of at least 100 people fought with police. Rioters set a bank on fire. It was at least the 4th building to burn following a BP gas station, and that thing is left as just a shell of itself. You see there? See what I did there? BP shell. Never mind. And then a lot of other cars, they were burned out that were sitting on the lot of the gas station. And then they even got an auto parts store, so I don't know what was really going on there, but it seems like gas station, cars, auto parts stores were heavily targeted. Number 5, the rioters assaulted journalists on the scene. kicking, punching, throwing reporters on the ground like rag dolls. So reporters there, and you know what? I just keep it real. That's all I can do is keep it real. What is so ironic is that many of the people in the media, and I'm not saying the reporters who were there, and those reporters were, I believe, associated with the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, but many reporters in covering this story will surely take a biased approach, as they often do, not so much supporting police. And you say, well, how do you know that, Deborah? You go by the sound bites, you go by how the story is structured, those kinds of things give you an indication where the media stand. And the irony here is that, well, guess what? Journalists themselves punched, kicked, and thrown on the ground like rag dolls. That's what it says in the article. And in the background, the audio, you probably will hear Black Power. All right, and let's go on to number 5. Actually, that was 5, so let's take a look at number 6. Many of the most violent rioters were affiliated with Black nationalist movements. And you're saying, well, how do you know that? Look, I only know what I read. I know you can't read everything that you believe everything that you read, but because I haven't read anything different, I'm going to go with this. Many of the most violent rioters were affiliated, actually, it says, with Black Lives Matter and other Black nationalist movements. And I know that they're talking about the new Black Panther Party, because I saw a story on them. They were walking with large weapons, large guns, dressed in black, and they said, this is war. So this is interesting. That's what it is. And then finally, number 7, on Sunday morning, Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker, he activated the National Guard. He said, you know what? We're not just going to sit here and watch our city burn down. I know a curfew was implemented, and then you may have seen this guy on television before, the county sheriff, David Clark. He said, I'm going to utilize all available resources to pretty much stave off any further damage. Okay, 312-754-4333. I'd love to talk with you, but I'm curious to know, do you feel that the rioters have a point? Do you feel that the rioters were making an important statement? Because, some people do feel that, people are at the breaking point. They can't take it anymore. They're tired of Black people being shot and killed by the police. And this was bound to happen. And it'll happen again and again and again, as long as Black people are being shot and killed by the police. Thankfully, that did not happen in Chicago when the young man was unfortunately killed. The young man, I think his name was O'Neill, and at least preliminary reports say that he was fleeing police. He was running away from police when he was shot in the back. But Chicagoans are cool. Chicagoans kept a cool head, and apparently are saying, well, let's see how they play this. Let's see what officials, the police department, the mayor, and if necessary, the feds, let's see what they come up with before we do anything. And even then, I don't think, and I certainly hope, that Chicagoans deal with it at the ballot box, not burning down banks as they have done in Milwaukee. And, did you? This is not funny, but let me answer my own question before I even tell you the thing I was going to just say. Do they have a point? No, not when you are rioting. You don't make a point by harming people, by looting, by burning, by shooting randomly into crowds of people. That you don't do. There's never a point to be made. And I always see the same things. When there are riots I don't care what the situation. If it's Baltimore, if it's Ferguson, if it's Chicago, way back in the day, you still see people who are opportunists. They go in, they break into the stores. I saw this one woman. This is the funny thing I was going to say. I saw this one woman on a video in Milwaukee. She was running out of a store with two arms filled with weave, hair weave. And she had this big smile on her face. And I'm so glad I did not hear her say Black Power. Because that seems to be like the catch-all phrase. If we say Black Power, then you have to ignore what we're doing. If we say Black Power, then you have to understand we are fighting for the cause. You're not fighting for the cause. They're engaging in criminal activity. I watched another video. There were a bunch of people, and they were saying, hey, as people were driving by, is that a white person in that car? Get him! Beat them! They were using profanity. And even though this is like the internet where, the FCC doesn't regulate it, I could use that, but I don't want to do that. But they were using all kind of profanity. And the point was, if you see a white person, drag them out of the car, beat them, kill them, do whatever you want to do to them. Black Power. I'm not making this up. They were saying Black Power after everything that they did. And to me, it does so much to delegitimize any real issue that they have. And it would be so good to see more of the leadership, particularly the Black leadership, like the ministers and the elected officials and fathers and husbands, like get together and take a stand and say, what these people are doing, we don't condone it. They don't represent us. And that's Black weakness. That's not Black Power. That's Black weakness. There was a minister, Bishop E.W. Jackson. He said that a mass hysteria has taken grip. They are using race as a way of avoiding responsibility. That's what this minister said, and I say good for him. I give him kudos. All right. And again, I should open up my Facebook as well, because I know that that's another means by which people can get in on the program. Go over to my page. I'll use Deborah's World. That's DEBORAH' World. You can also post your comments there at Deborah's World. And again, you can always just pick up your phone and give me a call at 312-754-4333, talking about what's happening in Milwaukee. But really, it's not just Milwaukee. It really isn't. It's across the country. And if you want to really, make the argument that, well, I feel that there is some level of justification for this, by all means, go ahead. Let's talk about that, because I would love to debate you about that, because I know that there is no justification. I'm Deborah Rowe. I am sitting in for Chris Bass. You're listening to Baseline. And again, coming up, we'll talk a bit more about what's happening in Milwaukee and the Olympics and election 2016. 312-754-4333. This is UrbanBroadcastMedia.com. You are listening to UBM UrbanBroadcastMedia.com, and this is Baseline, and of course it's normally with Chris Bass. I'm Deborah Rose, sitting in for Chris Bass, inviting you to join me in the program at 312-754-4333. That's 312-754-4333. Also, before we get back to our discussions, we were talking about what's happening in Milwaukee. And thankfully, things apparently have calmed down. I would love it. I would invite you to visit my blog. It's called Deborah's World. That's DEBORAH' World. You can just Google it, because actually it's the URL is deborahrowe.blogspot.com. And I always think that's just so much. So just Google Deborah's World and come over and check out some of the things that I write about, and I'll even kind of run through some of my most recent posts. I had kind of taken a short hiatus from the blog, but I am back. Okay, we were talking about the riots in Milwaukee. That all started on the heels of yet another police shooting. Someone just sent this to me, and thank you so much for sending this. The article here says, father of Black Milwaukee victim killed by Black cop, put the guns down. His son was shot and killed by a Black police officer in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Now, Seville Smith's father wants people to know that Black lives matter, and those who vilify cops are setting the wrong model for Black youths. Put the guns down, he pleads. I think this is pretty interesting, too, because oftentimes people are hurt. And let me go back real quickly to the Trayvon Martin case. I had just tremendous, and I mean tremendous, respect for his parents. They suffered the loss of their only child, killed, shot, dead. And those people, they showed, I thought, incredible discipline. They demonstrated their faith. They identified themselves as Christian. They showed they could not rely on their own strength. And to me, it was clear that they really were trusting on the Lord for strength. I just felt that way. They were just dignified. They showed so much class, even in their pain, even though they were angry. And this, to me, just based upon the comments of this young man's father, and I have to contrast that by Michael Brown's mom's boyfriend, now husband, that night in Ferguson, when he stood up and he was jumping up and down and he encouraged people, burn this bitch down. And I thought, that's not what you do. People's lives are at risk. People's businesses were clearly at risk and damaged and destroyed in many cases. But now this young man's father, he is telling people to put your guns down. And he says, anybody, and he says, the Black Lives Matter or anyone else that is vilifying police, they are bad role models for young Black people. So I have a lot of respect for that, because even though this was a horrific thing, someone loses their child, that is probably one of the worst things that they'll ever experience in their entire life. But for that person to be able to still stand up and say, don't react in this manner. Don't behave like this. Don't damage your own communities. Don't seek retaliation against police officers and certainly innocent people who just are not Black. He stood up, and this is what he's saying. So I really do applaud him. And again, with the exception of the one minister that I mentioned earlier, boo to the religious community in Milwaukee who are not saying a thing. Now, I'm getting an interesting note here from someone who's saying that I can't get the show. I don't have time to read. I'm not going to read it on the air. On the site where it says watch, listen live, none of the clickables are happening for some reason. So that's very possible. I actually might be it. I don't think this is the case. And Dion, if you hear me, maybe you know more about this, and I could give this person who has come up on my Facebook and messaged me saying, I can't hear the show. I can't get it. Maybe there is something else that you have to do, because if what this person is saying is the case for everybody, then I'm doing a show for you, James. And you, Dion. But it's well worth it regardless if there's 2 or 20,000 people listening. It's still well worth it. I don't know if you heard me, Dion, but I just got a message in from Facebook from someone saying that they cannot get the show. So maybe in our next break, if there is something else that they should be doing, you can tell me what that is. Well, yes. All right, let's move on, because I want to get some of these other topics in that I mentioned. Real quickly, let's talk about the Olympics right quick. Real quickly. Because to be honest, I have to make it real quick because I haven't really seen any of the Olympics. I saw like maybe a minute here and a minute there. I've done more reading about the Olympics. Actually, I got up late last night, and then my husband, he was watching the Olympics. What were you watching? Soccer? Figures. Oh, looking for wrestling. Okay, good enough. By the way, that's James in the background. He'll be joining me coming up in the next hour, and we'll hash a lot of this stuff as well, and anything else that he wants to talk about. Speaking of which, and I guess I should probably be texting or Facebooking at the same time because I'm still unclear whether or not people are able to get the show. Coming up, I'm saying texting, pardon me, but I'm Facebooking. Coming up, what are you tired of? I think that's what I was calling that. So we'll get to that as well. All right, but back to the Olympics. I guess a couple of monumental things have happened. One, Michael Phelps, I think, what does he have now, like 25 medals, and 23 of those are gold or something on that order. He just has like a Fort Knox now in his house. That guy is incredible. And maybe it's time that they don't do drug testing on Michael Phelps, but maybe some sort of biological testing, like to find out, like, is there some sort of fish DNA in his blood? You know, I want to know that. Does he have webbed feet? What's going on with this guy?
Yes.
It's something there. He's just an incredible swimmer. I mean, it's unbelievable. And speaking of swimmers, and this is where, I have to like bow my head in shame because I don't know her name and I'm embarrassed, but I do know that we got our first Black female to win a gold. I should look her name up. That's what I should do in the Olympics. It's for swimming. Very good. Actually, I think it was like a photo finish. I think it was like a tie. I said I wasn't following the Olympics as closely as I probably should. And then Simone Biles, with all her fancy footwork and her expertise in gymnastics. Excellent. I didn't see that either, but excellent. Yes. And there was some controversy that was raised. People were like, the internet caught fire again, because I guess when Simone was receiving her gold medal, or let me go back even before that, I guess after it was made clear that she had done so very well, her team members, two of them, they jumped up and they applauded. And there's a video, and I actually did see this video. Maybe, I wrote recently about, or certainly last week when Chris and I were doing the show together, I made mention of how short our attention spans have gotten. Maybe my attention span has really gotten short, that I can't tolerate watching the long Olympics. I only can watch like 30-second clips on Facebook. But there was a clip of little Gabby. Remember cute little Gabby? Well, they showed a video of the 5-member women's gymnastic team after Simone Biles had done such an incredibly successful job and would be getting the gold. Team members jump up in adulation of her victory, and the video shows little Gabby not looking too excited about it. Kind of turned, but in fairness to Gabby, the video that I saw, they put it in like really slow motion. It was really slow motion. And when you watch a video in slow motion, even the most benign movement, expression, behavior, it looks very, very different. So she almost looked like, I don't care. But I don't think that that's what Gabby was doing. But she did not stand. She gave like a one-clap applause. So from all indications, she wasn't too pleased there. So that was the controversy there. I'm curious to know this, though. When you watch the Olympics, do you say, I don't care how good someone else is on any other team. I don't care what the sport is. I don't care if it's basketball. I don't care if it's tennis. I don't care if it's shot put. I don't care. I only support the Americans. Are you like that? What about you, James? You can pull your mic down. I'm bringing you in anyways.
Okay. Well, generally, I'm supporting the Americans. However, when I see a fantastic performance by another athlete, that deserves recognition and is great, I applaud that athlete.
Traitor!
But I'm always for America first.
I'm only kidding. Sometimes you can't help yourself. If you know like the backstory of a particular athlete, even if they're from like another country, like for instance, I'll give you a great example. Monica, and I'm not going to pronounce her name correctly. I'm just going to say Puig. I don't know how that's pronounced. Puig.
Okay.
From Puerto Rico. She won the gold in tennis, becoming the first female to ever win a gold medal for the country. And I think like only the second or third person, period.
Well, that's good.
That was wonderful.
Other than boxing, Puerto Rico really, to my knowledge, hasn't really
That's
done
right.
well in
And
the
I
Olympics.
think the other two people, I think they were from in the sport of boxing.
Yes.
Yeah, so that was wonderful. And I was so happy. And I was keeping up with that because my dear friend and coworker, he is from Puerto Rico. And every few minutes he was like, yes. And then he walked around a few minutes later and his head was down. I said, what happened? She lost the second set. I said, she's going to win. Then he came back around. He said, she won. She won. I was like, that's great. Turn around. Turn around. In his eyes, he had been crying. I'm like, you've been crying. He said, yeah, I did shed some tears. But I'm like, that's right. So in that case, yeah, I was cheering for her.
But let me just say this, certain sports, certain events, I'm only cheering for the United States. And that event is, one of those events is the 100-yard dash, 100-meter dash, which we, for so many years, monopolized that race. Also, boxing is just the United States. I'm not cheering for the Russians. I'm not cheering for the Cubans. I'm not cheering for anyone but the United States in boxing. Also, basketball, and I think most people can relate to that. I'm cheering for the United States basketball team, not Argentina, not Cuba, not Russia, not anyone else. So certain events, I'm only cheering for the United States, and I don't care what Olympics it is.
Now, why is that you won't cheer for Cuba? Is that like something political also there or what?
No, because we are the best boxers.
Well, okay. I'm not like super immersed in the world of boxing, but it seems like a lot of them have Spanish surnames.
Yeah, we are the best.
Are they Americans? I know Manny Pacquiao. Is he an American?
Pacquiao is a Filipino.
Oh, see.
Filipino, but he's not an Olympic boxer.
No, he's not.
But a lot of the boxers are American citizens.
Okay.
Whether they're Mexican, whether they're black, whether they're whatever. But they represent the United States, not Britain, the United States. Same thing with basketball.
Well, now, see, you just said not Britain. I forgot that. Obviously, the United Kingdom, they compete in probably every sport. I'm kind of partial to England.
No, not in
I
boxing.
love them so much. I
No.
do. No.
No,
Not even.
not when it comes to boxing. Maybe cricket, soccer,
Polo.
water polo, something like that. But even water polo, really, the United States has dominated there also.
Oh, cool. Very cool. So what about you? 312-754-4333. Do you only support American athletes when it comes to the Olympics, or do you make exceptions? And then if so, what's the criteria there? You're listening to Baseline with Chris Bass. I'm Deborah Rowe, and this is UrbanBroadcastMedia.com. UrbanBroadcastMedia.com. You are listening to Baseline with Chris Bass. Chris is off. As always, head over to Facebook, get on his page, send Chris a message of well wishes and your prayers. I'm Deborah Rowe. Very pleased to be in for Chris. As you probably know, Chris and I go a long way back. If it were just Chris I was talking about, I would say long way back. But since I have to mention myself, I'll just keep it short. Long way. Don't want to age yourself. Just a long way back. All right. The number here is 312. Pardon me, I don't see a cough button in here, but 312-754-4333. Couple of things. I was here. Let me just send that now. I'm multitasking. I'm not the best multitasking person in the world. You know, some people, you don't even know they're doing 2 or 3 things. You know I am, because I have to kind of stop one to continue with the other. But someone Facebooked me in a message saying I cannot get the show. Okay. Dion gave me the path to the show. Just go over to the website, which is urbanbroadcastmedia.com. Go down. You'll see a couple of red boxes at the bottom. You can click talk, I think it is. But you can listen to the show right through the website. Or if you prefer, you can download the app, get over to the whatever you use, Android or iTunes or whatever, and get to the App Store. And make certain, though, that the UBM, the letters, look just like the logo on the website. And if you see the same thing, just go ahead and download that, and it's ready to roll. And I know it really works because during the break, Dion picked up his phone. Here, see? I'm listening right through the app. So, yeah. That's right. Get it through the app market, or just go on the website and listen. And by the way, let me thank those of you who are coming over and liking and saying, I'm here. Thank you so very much. I appreciate that. And then in studio, he's chimed in a few times already. My husband, James Rowe, who I sometimes call James Bro. He's here in studio. And then she's not on mic, but my daughter, Myra, she is also here. And so we're having a good time. If you are just joining us, though, earlier we were talking about what's going on in Milwaukee. So we are not going to rehash all of that. But if you want to speak about it, go right ahead. The question was, do the rioters have a point? And also we've been talking about the Olympics, and I was just curious to know, do you only cheer for the Americans? And then I did mention at the top of the program, I want to get some of your feedback. I'd love to know, what are you absolutely tired of? You know, you just can't take it anymore. And again, that doesn't have to be political. It could be relational. It could be about your children. It could be about your experiences when you go out to eat or shop or whatever. The question again is, what are you just tired of? Have you had enough of? That's the way I put it up on Facebook page. All right, Jimmy. So you made the point that when we were talking about the Olympics, that there are certain sports where you will not support anyone else. And those sports were?
Basketball, boxing, track, the 100-meter dash especially, 400-meter, and 200-meter. Yeah, I'd like the United States to dominate those events.
And they do, don't they?
Well,
no, the Kenyans do.
Well, no, that's the long distance, marathon, those races. But for example, Jamaica has been bringing the heat. Usain Bolt is the 100-meter champion, the last Olympics. You know, I'm trying to think who was our last 100-meter gold medal winner. It's been a while. So the Jamaicans have really been bringing the heat and making the kind of moving in on our space.
Now, do they still have a bobsled team, or was that just in a movie? I really don't know.
Well, that's the Winter Olympics.
Right, so but do they still have a bobsled team?
I'm sure they do.
Oh, that's interesting, because they don't get snow there.
Yeah, but, you know, they're like anyone else. You know, it only snows so many months here. So they come here for 3 or 4 months maybe, practice. And the key to bobsledding is that runner getting that fast push. You know, that makes a critical difference. That's why they're able to perform so well. So they just maybe head to Jackson Hole for a couple of weeks and get their technique together, and they're ready for the Olympics.
That's interesting. I would also think that they can't weigh a whole lot either. They probably have to be lightweights. What do you think?
Well, I guess the heavy guy in the front, I mean, I'm no expert
I didn't know that we have a heavy guy on the team.
But why not a heavy guy in the front of the sled? When the sled's going down, you would think, I don't know, maybe that's not how it's done, but you would have to have some weight to get that, you know, move that sled along, move it faster.
You know
Speed and weight,
That does make a
think.
lot of sense. Okay.
I'm just guessing.
But again, let's just say congratulations again to all of the Americans who have done incredibly well. I was looking at an article before we took off to get over here this afternoon. Americans have won over 1,000 gold medals since the inception of the modern Olympics.
And we need to keep it up.
Yeah. And I think we will. Real quickly, because there is a burning question that people are kind of discussing about the Olympics, and that is, one, should the Olympians be taxed for their gold medal? I think it's the gold medal people are wondering about.
What, are they taxing people for money they earned outside of the country? I guess that's, I think the gold medal is I didn't look at it. I never thought of it as a monetary value. I saw it as an award, a trophy. I was surprised that people will be taxing the value of a trophy, but and it being considered income.
Well, maybe some of the Olympians, the gold medalists, maybe they can get their names on that Panama list and they won't have to be taxed for it.
Well, I guess I'll just keep my gold medal in an offshore bank account, offshore safe deposit box,
That's the Panama list. That's the Panamanian list.
Yeah, you're right.
And they can avoid that altogether.
It's penalizing performance, I think. Because if you get a bronze medal, you have a medal, but you're not taxed at such a high rate. You do well, you work hard, you get a gold medal. Now you got old Uncle Sam. That's penalizing performance.
Well, be careful with that, because there are probably some pointy heads who are already thinking, well, you know what? Instead of giving like the gold medal, why don't we just give everyone like
participation
a
medal?
Participation medal. We don't have to worry about anybody trying to profit off of this. Nobody will feel bad. Everybody will feel, we're all winners.
Yeah, no winners, no losers,
Exactly.
And then self-esteem is boosted for everyone. And then maybe we could sing the national anthem, or all national anthems, Together, that's right. And then we'll just have a love fest and a joy fest.
Interesting. And you know what? I'm looking at you because as you're speaking, I'm thinking, I can see some people really thinking that is a fabulous idea.
If they're listening, there's some people out there, and probably quite a few, that are taking us seriously.
Right. I'm taking myself seriously. Hey, Jimmy, coming up, let's talk about election 2016. In fact, we can kind of go ahead and kick that off. Let me give the number out again at 312-754-4333. Again, 312-754-4333. I'm assuming if you're hearing me say any of this, you're already on the website, but just in case, urbanbroadcastmedia.com. You can also download the app. When we come back on the other side, I want to know, are you still undecided? Lots of people are still undecided. I say lots of people because that almost just rolls off my tongue. I think it's actually a small group of people when in the grand scheme of things. I think most people are either going with Trump or Hillary, but there is this highly coveted, undecided base of people that they really were going to, I think, determine in good measure how this whole thing works out. All right, this is urbanbroadcastmedia.com. You're listening to urbanbroadcastmedia.com, and this is Baseline with Chris Bass. I'm Deborah filling in for Chris. Our number here, 312-754-4333. And I've been kind of doing some updates on the show. Coming up, as I just posted, election 2016, are you undecided? And in studio with me is my husband of how many years, James?
29 years.
29 years.
Older than most people in the building.
Speak for yourself. Speak for yourself, please. Coming up in this hour, also love to know what you are just tired of. You can't take it anymore. We've been talking about Milwaukee, and James, I know you have some thoughts about that, so
Yes.
We'll get to that in just a moment. Also, we've been talking about the Olympics and whether or not you just cheer for the Americans. Want to get that in. And I think we had a pretty robust discussion about the riots in Milwaukee. I feel we did. So what more did you want to say about that, James? Because you really didn't say much. I was doing all the talking about that.
Well, regarding Milwaukee, I really, don't want to be dismissive, because when you see the violence, when you see the destruction of one's own community and other people's businesses, that had little to do with the actual shooting. And, sometimes you could be dismissive and people and just write them off and say that, hey, these people are wrong. But I tried to give it some thought about, the narrative we hear about pent-up frustration and anger, people in the black community at a boiling point. And, I try to at least give credence to those narratives that are being spoken of. But when looking at really what's happening there, it's disappointing because, when people are being shot, as some people say, unjustifiably, maybe justifiable, maybe unjustifiable, tearing down, burning, acting like children, out of control, is not a demonstration of any type of power whatsoever. It's the example of powerlessness and immaturity and a lack of discipline. I hear a lot of these so-called spokespeople, politicians. I heard one Wisconsin state senator try to justify and speak to these actions. And I just find it disheartening that we as black people have such low standards for ourselves. Yes, you could be angry, but being angry and losing control is counterproductive. I think sometimes we have lower expectations for our own selves than anyone else. And it was demonstrated in this rioting.
What do you mean by that?
Well, for example, to address a problem which we say is very critical about police shootings of unarmed black people, or let me just say this, unjustifiable shootings.
Though in this case, this guy was armed.
He was armed.
Yeah.
He was armed. However, every police shooting should be taken seriously, thoroughly investigated, and a conclusion made. However, in this instance, people seem to take what they heard on Facebook or whatever social media channels they were using, and then just breaking out in violence. And I don't see how that in any way helps those people, anyone who's being shot unjustifiably by police.
Well, I think you're right. And I think that's why the victim in the sense that he's dead, he was shot and killed, whatever it was that he was doing prior to the shooting. But I think that's why his father, his name is Patrick Smith, has spoken out.
Yes.
I think that's why his father has spoken out. He knows it's no justification.
Here, a father, regardless of what the situation was, he lost his son. He's the person who's in pain.
That's right.
Not someone who's breaking into the beauty supply store stealing weave. Not the people who are burning down the gas station. These people, actually, to me, are taking advantage of a situation to engage in lawlessness.
And that's why I called them opportunists. But I'm going to tell you something else, Jimmy. What also does not help when you have people who are not in Milwaukee, just regular everyday people who are engaged in conversations about, yeah, that's right, I understand, and I'm glad they did that. I was so disappointed. I cannot even express how disappointed I was after the mass shooting of police in Dallas a couple months ago.
Yes.
I ran into a friend of mine who is a former Marine, served
Okay.
3 tours. He's a tough guy. And it had just happened, and I asked him, I said, oh, my goodness, did you hear about what happened? And he said, what? And I told him, he said, oh, yeah, I heard about that. Well, chickens are coming home to roost. And I'm like, what? What did you? I didn't say that, but I looked at him as though he didn't have a face. I was just looking at him like he was crazy.
Well, I hear people say those same things, have those sentiments, but, to me, it's just unfortunate because they're asking other people to fall on their sword, but they're not falling on their own. They're not doing what it takes to improve the lot of our community. I mean, that's just like a bunch of you're cheering on a bunch of out of control children. But what is your responsibility? Are there any adults in the community? Do we just justify everything we do and say, well, it's excusable because the white man did this, they did that? When are we going to take responsibility for ourselves to move forward? Now, black people have moved and made a lot of progress in this country. Oh, yeah. But if you look at our communities, a lot of our communities, not all, we have a lot more progress to be made. And burning down buildings, looting and rioting has not helped us at all. Matter of fact, go to the West Side where the riots were after Fred Hampton and Mark Clark were killed, or after Dr. Martin Luther King was assassinated. Go to any city, Detroit,
Watts,
Chicago. And you know what? The only time there's any movement, and these communities still suffer those same scars that were inflicted 45, 48 years ago. The only difference today, if you go in Chicago and some of those areas, is because of gentrification. That's why those areas are being rehabilitated. And it's not the people in that community who live in that community, is new people moving in, now making a change. So if we go back 48, 49 years ago to 1968, 1967, same thing in Detroit with the massive riots, the gentrification is making that change. Now, the people who lived in those communities 49 years ago lived in the same dilapidated squalor for years.
But it's really unfair to the regular people, the citizens who live there every day, who are not going to go out and are not going to riot. And that's most people.
Tremendously unfair.
It's so unfair because that Amoco or that BP store, gas station, that station is gone. So will it mean that they'll have to drive, a couple of more miles away from home? That auto parts store is gone. Same thing that happened down in Ferguson.
I was just thinking about that.
Same thing. And there was this one black woman. I'll never forget this woman. She had just opened like a bakery, I think it was.
Okay.
They burned that thing down to the ground. Interestingly enough, you didn't hear much about it, but it was actually a bunch of Tea Party people who raised money and got her stuff back together.
Yeah, I always wondered, all those people who went down to Ferguson, the Black Lives Matter, all the white activists that went down there to gin up that situation, they left after the cameras left.
Yeah, they left.
Now, I wonder, where was their follow-up, to rebuild Ferguson? Was there any follow-up by Black Lives Matter movement? Was there any follow-up by these people who were standing with the people of Ferguson against racial injustice? Where are they now? How's that working out for them?
Well, that is I think in all seriousness, that's a very important point that you make, because Black Lives Matter, we all know that. But if you're leading the charge to attack police,
yes,
to burn down communities in the name of Black Power and Black Lives Matter, you have a responsibility, first of all, not to do that. But you have a responsibility to stay, to rebuild, to make certain that because these lives matter, they get to live the same quality of life, at least what they had before you came in there and it made certain that everything was destroyed.
I agree. It's as though the people in that community are left holding the bag.
Yeah, they're left holding the
People
bag.
come in from outside that community, or maybe some of them live in that community, get the fire stoked, and the destruction occurs. Then these people either leave or just go back to what they're normally doing, and the community is in worse shape than it was prior to.
Well, they do leave. We saw this for a fact down in Ferguson. The overwhelming number of arrests were of those people who came from places as far as New York, Chicago, other parts of the state of Missouri. These were not locals. Same thing happened in Baltimore. I was just talking with the retired lieutenant, with some big guy with the Baltimore Police Department on another station recently. And no, these are traveling activists, which I also call anarchists. And their goal is to cause disruption. My point for really even mentioning all of that is citizens, regular, everyday people, the people that own homes in those communities that are paying taxes. If you're paying rent, you've got an investment in that community. This is where block clubs, this is where organizational structure really comes in hand. Or if you don't have any of that, get on the phone, call your friends, band together, let it be known. No, you're not bringing that mess up in here.
Yeah, well, and they should, because, it affects where you live. See, the people who live in Ferguson, the people who live in Milwaukee, they're the ones who are going to bear the brunt of all this destruction.
Yeah.
And the people who are so allegedly instigating, getting these, getting the crowds and the people really incensed, they leave. And a lot of these people are, as you mentioned, professional activists, college educated. They're going to have their life. They're going to be able to make their way. But what about the people who live there?
All right, you're listening to urbanbroadcastmedia.com, and this is Baseline with Chris Bass. I'm Deborah Rowe, filling in for Chris today, along with my husband, James. The number here is 312-754-4333. On that point about the traveling activists, by the way, if you want to read a little bit more about that, visit my blog, Deborah's World. You can Google it, Deborah's World, and find the piece. And I may actually later on today make that the featured post for the day. $15 an hour is not a grassroots effort. And I have that particular article, I heavily sourced that. You will find that lots of money goes into paying people to travel all over the country. And, I remember when I used to take the newspaper, the physical newspaper years ago, and you go into the want-ad sections, and you would always see these ads.
Acorn.
Acorn and various other groups. Paid activists, let your voice be heard, earn X amount of dollars an hour.
Yes.
A lot of that is, in fact, I actually know someone that does that. A lot of this is paid activity. The real question is, who's doing the paying?
Oh, yeah, well, the usual suspects. It's easy to find out who's doing the paying. And, one thing that I don't like about it all is that you would think, say, for example, Black Lives Matter or other groups, that these are, organic, movements that, develops in the community. For example, compared to the civil rights movement, I mean, arguably, these were local ministers and local municipalities and towns that it was an organic movement. Whereas the other movements, these other groups are born out of union halls and maybe New York, and out of business offices of foundations or nonprofits that are funded by the millionaires and the billionaires.
That's right.
That these people allegedly are railing against. The activists are paid, their jobs, they're vetted. A lot of them are college educated. Nothing's wrong with that. However, these people are not from these communities. Now, when you have people who are getting everybody active and destroying, the point being, They have no responsibility. So when it's all over, they leave those community. Again, everyone who lives there is left holding the bag. And I just want to know, when are we as black people are going to get tired of being used?
Now, James, you watch me write my blog, my posts all the time. And that's a frequent theme in many of my blog posts, because it's as though we don't feel that we can make a difference. And we have to go along with these so-called leaders, political types, because otherwise, who's going to speak for us? The real brutal irony is that they're not speaking for us. They're speaking for themselves, and they are benefiting themselves.
Oh, that's right. You know, our misery, I'll just say this. It seems to me that the misery or the dysfunction or the problems with the black community is cachet for those elected officials, some of the ministers, the leaders, because they benefit, because they're the ones, they get the money, the programs, the positions, and everything stays the same in the community.
Absolutely. And for anybody whose eyes may be, glossing over they're glassy eyed and they're thinking, I don't like this. I get tired of people trying to break bad on the black community. It's not about that. It really isn't. It's about, let's just be honest. It is unconscionable that you can go through certain neighborhoods and the exact same decrepit, deplorable conditions have existed for 3 and 4 generations, certainly 2 and 3 generations, for 30, 40, 50, 60 years. And you get the same people, you keep voting the same way, you get the same promises. Although I have to say, back in the 90s, when Chicago was really undergoing an extreme rash of violence, Bill Clinton did come in and he did set up something to stop the violence. Do you remember what it was?
Midnight basketball.
You've got a good memory. It was midnight basketball.
How'd that work?
That didn't work well at all. And I was so frustrated with that because I'm thinking, wait a minute, how condescending can you possibly be? You're going to put games at midnight this wasn't for children because children can't be out. They're not supposed to. There were curfew laws. This was for men, black men. Clinton's solution to the problems was, we'll set up some basketball games. Y'all have a good time. You hear?
I guess it was diversion. They play basketball, then they won't be robbing at night. It's just insulting.
And as ugly as that was, that program cost $43 million, $43 million of the taxpayers' money. I'm more than willing to bet not one single person that played basketball in the midnight hours got one penny of that money. It's really sad because this is what we're talking about, but who got the money? The administrators, the people, the politicians, the so-called leaders, the friends. That's the travesty of it all. All right, you are listening to Urban Broadcast Media. Coming up, we really are going to move into politics in terms of the 2016 election. I'm Deborah Rowe. He's James Rowe. We're in for Baseline with Chris Bass, UrbanBroadcastMedia.com.
Because lately you've been starting to lose.
Deborah Rowe here on UrbanBroadcastMedia.com. You are listening to Baseline with Chris Bass. Hey, Chris, I know you're listening. Hope everything's fine, and I'm sure it will be. Chris will be back in his seat next Monday, and then I come back the second Monday of the month. We do that each and every month. And again, I'm Deborah Rowe. Our number here is 312-754-4333. We have covered so much, and for those of you who are just joining the show, you missed it. But we probably will try to save a little block of time at the end if you want to weigh in on anything. I know James even says he has something else he wants to add about one of our earlier topics, so we'll do that. But Jimmy, I want to move on because we are in the throes of the presidential election 2016. I'm telling you, this is the craziest, this is the most bizarre election ever. I do want to say this, though. I have my political views. You have yours. And you have yours too, and you too. I'm not really pointing to anybody. I'm just speaking to those of you who are listening. That's the beauty of America. It sounds cliche, but goodness knows it's the truth. Even when I watched the DNC convention, Democratic National Committee convention, I didn't agree with probably anything I heard. But honestly, I did watch it, and it felt good. It really did, to know that in this nation, people can be on different ends of the political spectrum, but we're free. We are free, people. I want to say that again. We are free to express our views politically. Nobody's going to come knocking on your door, kicking the door down, dragging you and your family out the bed, lining you up because you didn't speak well of the leader. You criticized the leader. This happens in other countries. Yes, it does. Many other countries. Not in this country. We televise it. People, they stand up, they wear crazy hats, they put their signs up, and sometimes they're pretty mean. That's what I found so disturbing about what was happening during the earlier parts of the summer, particularly when Donald Trump was having his rallies, when people were coming out and hitting police and beating people because they supported Trump. That's not America. Now, that's not American. You don't have to you don't have to believe them. What you do is you don't vote for them, but you don't go threatening like that poor woman that wore the Trump T-shirt and these people ganged up on her and threw eggs on her. I mean, what kind of idiots are these? Or the little boy who was with his dad and he was a supporter of Trump, and several men chased him and he ran to the police because they didn't like the fact that they were supporting Trump. That's not who we are. So I was it just makes me feel good. And I say this every 4 years. It makes me feel good to see American politics on full display the way it was designed to be. Now, having said all of that, this is some dirty stuff, though. I have to tell you, this is some dirty, dirty stuff. This politics is not a pretty game. It is not a game for the meek or anything like that. And it really should be. But politics has just devolved into something that's just nasty. And you can point your fingers as to who's to blame. But what I want to know from you, are you still undecided? That undecided, I think, what did they say? It's like maybe 5-10%. Are you in that group? You still are undecided. And goodness knows, both of these candidates, they leave a lot to be desired. Hillary has an incredible issue with truth and integrity, and honesty is truth. So it's another word I can come up with. Trump has a serious issue with focus and discipline and, yes, name calling. Jimmy, you have an idea that you've actually thrown at me a couple of times, not just here in the studio, about the upcoming election. And as we all know, both of these candidates have incredibly high unfavorability numbers.
Oh, yeah. I've been watching this like everyone else. And I was really, I've been watching Donald. Let me just start with Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. I've been watching Donald Trump. And, I mean, there's been softball lobs because of Hillary's mistakes, the things that she's done, these emails. They have very serious implications. You're looking at a number of the economy. And what does Trump do? He is almost acting as though he works for Hillary. I mean, he sabotages every opportunity for him to get ahead. To be honest with you, if Trump had just done, addressed the issues that were the low-hanging fruit, he would be ahead. But somehow he's behind. And I wonder if this is purposeful, or is there something to this craziness that they say a lot of people are saying about him. Also, Hillary, just the crazy, it's almost like, is she crazy too? The Clintons are doing things that they should know wouldn't pass the smell test. Setting up her own personal server as Secretary of State, knowing she's going to run for president one day, that's just crazy. Also, the emails and the commingling of the people with the White House and the Clinton Foundation. So I'm just wondering, at some time between now and November, will Trump and Hillary still be candidates, or will there be two other people in their place?
Oh my goodness!
I think it's possible.
Oh my goodness! Do you really think that that's possible?
Well, I mean, think about this: Trump is just self-destructing, burning up, just imploding. You have Hillary, who now President Clinton, well, the former President Clinton, has come out against James Comey, the man that kind of gave Hillary a pass when it came to recommending an indictment. Now he's attacking Comey, and so that lets me know there's something else going on with Comey, the FBI, and the Justice Department, possibly an impending indictment for these other emails that they have. And will Trump implode? Will Hillary be indicted? Will we have two other people running for president?
Well, you know what? Now,
will it be Bernie?
I don't know how that constitutionally, I guess. I don't know how that works. Is there any constitutional standard for that?
Well, I'm sure if you get a candidate that's possibly indicted, the other one just loses, just loses it, and for whatever reasons is taking out the race. I mean, if someone died or if someone had a illness that kept them from pursuing the presidency, I guess you have a vice presidential candidate, who could maybe assume that role, and then you appoint another. That's a possibility.
Now, you know what, that probably is right, because you do have the committees of both parties, the Republican National Committee and the Democrat National Committee. I guess both of those would then have the authority to renominate. Yeah, that makes perfectly good sense.
I could see Trump being taken out in a straitjacket and Hillary marching off to jail. So I mean,
Trump is not going to leave in a straitjacket, but you know what? Well, maybe he will, because I can't figure Mr. Trump out, and I just so want him to quit clowning, as they say.
He's like the guy who, he has it all. He has everything it takes to win, but something keeps him from winning. He's self-destructive.
His mouth keeps him from winning.
Yeah, it is self-destructive.
It's very self-destructive.
Yes.
So I totally agree with your point, though, that James Comey and the FBI are working on other emails. And by the way, let me give you my other quick theory. And James, I have said this.
Okay.
That first batch of emails, the ones where, it involved her, all of them are with the server business, but
yes.
Maybe something about Benghazi or whatever, but she said it was basically her yoga schedule and all. Wedding plans, just stuff nobody would be interested in. However, she took a really long time to ever address those, and she really waited in good measure until she got before the FBI to really discuss it. And I grew to believe that she was stalling to create drama around those emails, knowing full well that those emails were not the ones that were going to bring her trouble. I began to believe she knew there were other emails, because we keep forgetting there are still 35,000 missing emails.
Well, they were probably all about weddings and things
Unlikely.
like that.
There is the movie Clinton Cash. And if you haven't seen that movie, by the way, I strongly recommend it. And I say that for people who are strong supporters of Hillary, indifferent to Hillary, or if you just don't like her. If you don't like her, these are all your options. But this movie, and people have tried to scrutinize this movie and find out if there is false information, and they repeatedly come back with, there's no discrepancy here. This guy hit the nail on the head. And I have been looking at both sides. Now he has a book. They said he changed 5 things in the book that were mistakes, and I'm reading now they were very small mistakes. You can get the book on the Kindle. But as far as the Clinton cash, it's extremely well sourced. My point being, I think those 35,000 missing emails have to do with pay for play, as they say.
Oh, yes.
What was going on between the State Department and the Clinton Foundation. And I think that's why Bill Clinton is trying to put it out there, get in front of it by saying James Comey is full of baloney.
I agree. I mean, these people, the Clintons remind me of Bonnie and Clyde.
How so?
They like to live on the edge.
They do live on the edge.
They have just like Trump. Mm-hmm. They have a lot of self-inflicted wounds. Yeah. However, they seem to kind of enjoy. There's some type of enjoyment here when they live on the edge and they slide by, get by, because they play they go right to the edge of things. Mm-hmm. I mean, when they talk about rules and laws, the Clintons seem to play just right close to the point where they don't tip over. And I think there's something going on here. It's something else I was thinking about. Uh-huh. The Clintons, I believe, are trying to disprove Abraham Lincoln.
Meaning what?
You know, Abraham Lincoln said, you can fool some of the people some of the time. Mm-hmm. And you can fool some of the people all of the time. But you cannot fool all of the people all of the time. Well, I think Hillary and Bill are out to do that.
They're going to disprove that theory there, huh?
Oh, yeah, they're going to do it. They're going to go. Could you imagine? I mean, that I want to use certain words carefully because children may be listening to this show, but that would be the biggest thrill for them. Bill, I got Hillary elected. Mm-hmm. She's president. He was president. The Clinton Foundation is now open to all branches. I mean, we're all arms offices in government. You know, they were relegated to the State Department because she's Secretary of State. Mm-hmm. Now Bill has to run the entire government.
And the Lincoln bedroom
and
again.
And the Lincoln, oh my God. So, you know, I just hopefully, but I believe something's going to happen. Hillary let off in handcuffs, Trump in the straitjacket.
All right, we've got some comments here. First of all, we got a great compliment. You two sound good together. You could be the new Don and Roma. Woo!
Whoa.
I love that. For those of you who don't know, Don and Roma, the best morning show
they were
duo ever in Chicago's talk radio. I love them. So that's why I said that's a big compliment.
They didn't say Jobo, did they?
No, they didn't say Jobo, Eddie V and Jobo. No, thank you. It was Don and Roma. Also, it says here, Julian Assange said there's something coming out in October that will get Hillary indicted for sure.
They're going out with a blaze of bullets.
Well, you know, Julian Assange, and I know everybody knows this. This is the WikiLeaks founder. You know what? He's in exile, self-imposed exile, in I don't even know where he is. The Netherlands. I don't know where he is.
Hiding in someone's embassy.
Yeah, but the point being, he won't be coming back. But if it were not for Julian Assange, we would not have known that Bernie Sanders was not just being a whiny crybaby and that the DNC really was trying to destroy his campaign. When those emails came out, it proved it.
Yes.
So, you know, if he says he's got something coming out in October, Hillary better look out, then she better look out. All right. You are listening to urbanbroadcastmedia.com. Our number here is 312-754-4333. It's Deborah and James Rowe.
Yeah. Play on, play that. Play on, play that. It's always the same, it's just a shame, that's all.
You know, it's a rarity that you find someone who is just so musically compatible with you. Dion, sir, you are a rarity. Yes. Everything you've played, I just love. Oh, yeah. Phil Collins. That's all. All right, Deborah Rowe here for Chris Bass, Baseline with Chris Bass on urbanbroadcastmedia.com. Our number here, 312-754-4333. I couldn't even finish responding to this Facebooker who has some advice for Julian Assange. I won't even say it, but I'll finish that comment. But I agree with you. Yes, I do. We were talking about election 2016 and wondering whether or not you have made up your mind. I've made up my mind. I made up my mind like 8 years ago, even when I didn't know Donald Trump was running. And it's so funny because I have said, by the way, I invite you to visit my blog, Deborah's World. Just Google it, Deborah's, DEBORAH' World, like Deborah's World. But I have said on any number of occasions, I am not a rah Donald Trump fan. I really am not. But I'm also not going to stand by, just say, well, you know what, she's going to be the first woman. How historical. Yeah, if you really, really just read and look at all of the selling of our resources that she has personally been involved in through that Clinton Foundation. I mean, I'm just thinking she just did that as the Secretary of State, just through the State Department. I shudder to think what she wouldn't sell if she were president of the United States effectively over all of the departments. You know, that's why Russia right now controls 1/5 of the U.S. uranium deposits.
Yeah, and they make bombs with that stuff.
That's right. It's because of a deal she made.
But, you know, also, besides that, it's just that, you know, her low opinion of the American people. I mean, when you listen to their economic program, they come out with the goodie bag, you know, free college education, free this, free
yum,
that.
yum.
The average person who supports Hillary really knows someone's going to have to pay for this. Now, they tell you it's the billionaires, but check this out. You have she has more billionaires supporting her than Donald Trump. She had Bloomberg, who is a big deal on Wall Street. You know, Wall Street, they paint these Wall Street people as the bad guys. You know, Bernie Sanders was attacking Wall Street. Hillary allegedly took up his mantle. But yet the same people they're talking about attacking are the biggest contributors and supporters of her campaign. Warren Buffett, he doesn't make bicycles or sleds or cars. He's a financier. He makes money. He's Wall Street. Although
But they're 1%ers.
they're all the one. So all the 1%ers, all the people with money are supporting Hillary, and Hillary's going to give everybody else these goodies. Don't people think that something's not right with this?
You know, I'll tell you what else is not right. Not only has she not released those 35,000 emails, you know what else she refuses to release? Her speeches to Wall Street firms.
Oh, she'll never release that.
And they've been asking for those. Well, what did you promise them? What did you say? Why did they pay you all of that money? I'm not going to release those to you.
Well, I wonder if the Bernie people, are you listening?
I think they are listening. But, you know, the Bernie people they talk about burn all the time. Put a fire under your butts and get up and do something. Now, they did endorse Clinton Cash. They say that's a movie every American should see so that they can see what she's really about. But that's not good enough.
I'm telling you, Deborah, something's telling me that Hillary is not going to cross the finish line. Trump, he's not going to cross the finish line. Something tells me that both of them will not be our candidates for president in November. There's going to be a change. Something has to give here.
Well, let's see. What's today's date? August 15th?
Yeah.
I'm going to write that down. That's one thing I have to say about you, Jimmy. You have an extremely acute sense of analysis of political stuff. Now, this is not so much analysis. Well, it is some analysis. But you've mentioned this to me before, that you don't see either of these two finishing the crossing the finish line.
Yeah, especially when Bill attacking Comey that he gave Hillary a gift.
He gave Hillary a
A
gift.
get out of jail card, free card.
No indictment, no nothing.
Now they're doubling up and attacking him. They're attacking Comey, so that means they're attacking the Justice Department.
Right.
They're attacking President Obama, our president. They're attacking the very hand that fed them, and this sounds like out of desperation.
Yeah, it does. And after all, he did cause Loretta Lynch, the Attorney General, a big headache
An embarrassment.
and an embarrassment when he jumped on her plane like that.
Remember he's Slick Willie?
Yeah, am I plugging my blog too much to say that?
No, I think people need to go there so they
Yeah.
can find out.
Go over to Deborah's World. Again, Google Deborah's World. And I write a piece about that. Bill Clinton, why is it that he really got on Loretta Lynch's plane? Jimmy, before we have to wrap things up, you had some more thoughts about the Olympics and Gabby, didn't you?
Oh yeah, well I didn't really get a chance to read the article, but it was by Gabby's mom, and they're calling media bullies on social media those attacking Gabby for her lack of enthusiasm when Simone Biles won the gold medal. I was telling you, Deborah, look, I mean, if my mind was dead set on winning that gold medal, sometimes it's hard to bring that happy face on. Just say, I will be honest, look, I'm a competitor. I want to be number one. That's why I work so hard. I really mean, Simone, no ill will. I just, it was hard for me to really consume all of it at that moment, but I'm really happy for her. Just tell the truth.
So what did her mom say?
I didn't get a chance to read it.
Wonk, wonk.
That's why I didn't bring it up.
Well, but you know what? My dear friend, she texted me the video about that. But as I said earlier, but in looking at that video, it was in ultra slow motion.
Yeah, well, that.
And when you
distorts it.
have something in ultra slow motion, it just really enhances whatever it is. So it could have been just a quick look, and I know she just supposedly did the one clap and didn't stand up. But I really did feel that.
But wait, Deborah, didn't the other girl who stood up, Elise, didn't she want to go?
Could have, and Gabby was eliminated earlier.
Yeah, it was. I mean, so she didn't win anything. So maybe
But some people may say sour grapes, bad sportsmanship, and all of that. But I kind of think Gabby's focus was so intense, and I don't think she was going to play the phony. Hey, look at me, I'm with the team too.
Yeah.
She was happy for her.
Yeah.
But she wasn't going to put on a show.
Yeah. Why should she?
Yeah.
That's disappointing after you work so hard to get to that point. You go home empty-handed. Yeah, I mean, that's very disappointing. So, hey, I can understand that.
Plus, Gabby has enough to deal with. I mean, the way people acted towards her because of her hair when she was competing,
Especially
the last time.
black people.
Oh, I
Black
know.
people were the main ones criticizing her.
They were. That was pretty shameful. That was pretty
It's horrible.
embarrassing. Gabby, that's my little heart. I really like little Gabby. I really
Oh, yeah.
do.
No, she's a competitor, and she's done very well.
I hope I'm not confusing her with Eber's daughter, Gabby. My friend.
No. She
'Cause he
does not
reminds
flip.
me.
She does not jump and flip.
She reminds me of her. All right, actually, we have time to, let's take a quick look because I had a couple more topics that I wanted to bring up. Jimmy, anything that you really and truly are just tired of? And again, doesn't have to be in the world of politics. Could be, don't talk about anything in my house, and I mean that.
Okay, well, you know what I'm tired of?
What?
Driving through Chicago, and this is casting no aspersions on anyone,
Mm-hmm.
but I go to Chicago in the course of my work and see many neighborhoods. And let me tell you something: black people need to take a look at their Hispanic neighbors. They are doing tremendous in the city. I think and I look at the number of Hispanics here, the number of businesses, the number of new schools, and the number of resources they have, and we need to rethink things.
Oh, I think you're right there. I don't disagree with you. Jimmy, I have enjoyed doing the show with you.
Hey, I really enjoyed it myself. This is fun.
All right, let's carry it on in the living room when we get back.
Let's do it again.
Okay. And to everyone who tuned in, who are online, who are on Facebook, all of you, thank you so much. By the way, again, my blog is Deborah's World. You can also visit me on Twitter at Deborah__world. Deborah's__world. And Dion, producer extraordinaire, thank you so much. Chris Bass is back on Monday. You're listening to UrbanBroadcastMedia.com.